Hello everyone, Peaceful here, and welcome to the Salamander Queen Tribal Deck Breakdown and Easy Upgrade video. This will be a series of 5, one for each tribal deck, and I may do this for the release decks later. So, basically, I'm going to go through every card in the deck, explain how it works, my opinion on it, and then once I've broke down the deck, I'm going to then give you easy upgrades for the deck that'll help improve it greatly and make it even possibly competitive. So, without further ado, let's start with the beasties. So, starting off with Salamander Queen, the face card of this deck. It's a Beastie Elemental, 1 per spellbook, and it costs 5 Flame Aura and has 80 life points. Its attacks get a 50 damage boost from Desert. So when it's in the arena, your other Beastie Dinosaurs, your other Flame Beastie Dinosaurs, which would be your Giant Salamander and the tokens this makes, gain 10 life points and they gain 25 for Desert Terra. If it's in the arena when you contract a spell, you can pay 1 Flame Aura to place a Dinosaur Beastie with 10 life points and 10 damage into the arena. So this essentially will create more quote-unquote Giant Salamanders, but they're weaker and they will get a boost from Salamander Queen's own abilities. And then Combustive Loyalty, you can basically sacrifice a certain amount of beasties you control, they have to be flame, and then you deal 25 that many damage, that's how much the attack does. This is a really good attack actually, because if you have, let's say, 2 other Salamanders, another Fire Elemental, maybe even a token or 2, it doesn't really matter, you don't have to pay for them, you just attack, sacrifice those, and you could be dealing upwards of 100 or 200 damage. There's 2 issues with this card though, which make me not really like it. First of all, it has a relatively high cost of 5. This might be perfectly fine, and this would be a great card if you're playing these theme decks out of the box against each other, but if you want to play this more competitively, 5 Aura is really not what you want for an 80 life point beastie competitively right now. In addition, it relies on other cards a lot, like this card gets a lot better when you have a Desert Terra, and it's not as good when you don't. It's also a lot better when you have your Giant Salamanders, but Desert Terra is only a 1-of in this deck, so it's a card that's expensive and relies on you having other cards. Next is probably my favorite beastie in this deck, and the best, Giant Salamander. It has a spellbook limit of 5, so that's pretty good. You'll get on average 1 in your opening hand, and then 1 every 8 turns later. It costs 1 Flame Aura, it has 50 life points, and it deals a base of 25 damage, but it gets plus 25 damage for a Felled Tree, which is what you'll select as one of your But it gets plus 25 damage for Felled Tree, which is what you'll select as one of your 5 Fourth Wall items. So really, it's 1 aura for a beastie with 50 life points and deals 50 damage. Now, it does get a plus 50 boost for Forest Terra, but Forest Terras don't come in this deck anyway, and we really want to try to stick on the no-to-low Terra side for a low-to-the-ground aggro deck. Next we have Fire Elemental. It's another really good beastie. It's 2 Flame Aura. It's very fragile though, with only 20 life points. It has 2 amazing traits though. First of all, Fleet, which means it enters awakened. Second of all, Convert, which means you can fatigue it to create a Flame Aura. And these 2 traits actually go really well together because you can, on turn 2, you can pay 2, contract Fire Elemental, it will enter awakened, and then you can use Convert to get another Flame Aura and play, let's say, a Giant Salamander. Its power's okay. It gets to turn one of your pages into a 30-30, and it dies at the end of the turn. It's okay. You only really want to do this late game because your auras are pretty important, and 30 damage isn't really worth losing one of your auras. Its attack is also pretty decent. Even though it only deals 20 damage, it can inflict burn, which can pop Gumbaroos and just make your opponent play slower. Next is another beastie that would be decent playing it out of the box, but it's really, really bad. So not only is it high cost, and not only does it have a lower life total, but it can only attack, lower life total than Salamander Queen, I mean. It can only attack forest beasties and artifacts, except for casters. And if there's one thing I could teach you about MetaZoo, the most important thing is board control. You need to, before you even think about your opposing caster's life points, you need to make sure you have control of the board. You need to target their beasties first, and if you don't, they will target your beasties and you won't have a chance. So, having something that only really deals damage to casters most of the time, and does 50 to 100 damage is not worth it, especially for 5 Aura. This is one of the cards that's probably the worst in the deck, and one of the cards that I want to get rid of for sure. Next, let's move on to the spells. First of all, we have Spontaneous Combustion. There's 3 of them in this deck, but there's a spellbook limit of 6. It costs 2 Flame Aura, and you have to pretty much sacrifice the Flame Beast you control to Limbo. If you noticed with the Salamander Queen, this is kind of a theme in this deck, sacrificing. It's a theme we're probably not going to really keep around. That's because you're sacrificing a beastie to deal 50 damage to a beastie or artifact. So, this can take out an Aurifact or a Gumberoo, Lava Bear, Roperite, Giant Salamander. This is a pretty decent card for side decks and flame decks, but it's really not something you want to be main decking, because it's a pretty steep cost for the effect. Next we have Fire Enchant. It's 2 Flame Aura, 3 of them are in the spellbook, and it's essentially like a power-up red, where you place it under a beastie and it gains that effect. The effect this gains is plus 10 damage, its attacks are flame, and their attacks inflict burn. So it's pretty decent again, but we really want to be changing this into a more beastie-heavy deck, because this spell relies on having beasties out. Next we have Fireball, which I'd say is a better version of Spontaneous Combustion. It costs less, costs half as much, deals half as much damage, and inflicts burn, but you also don't have to, like, sacrifice a beastie. This is great. This takes out Chaos Crystal, takes out Gumberoo, it takes out a lot of, since it does extra 20 damage against forest pages, it actually takes out a lot of the Fearsome Beastie Critter deck. And finally, you have Bookmark. There's only 1 of them in this deck. You really want 2. Bookmark, you should have 2 of in every deck. It's such a good card, because you're spending 1 page to play this, and you're bookmarking 2. You're coming out with a 1-page advantage, and it only costs 1 neutral aura. This is great if you're scared of what your opponent could have on the first turn, and you don't want to put down a beastie that you think might die. You can just bookmark instead. Next we have Miscellaneous. We have 15 Flame Aura, which is super high, especially because flame decks generally are a lot on the lower curve, lots of 1-drops and 2-drops. 15 Flame Aura is a lot. You have that 1 Desert Terra that really only, if we go back, it really only affects Salamander Queen, and nothing else in this deck. So it's a 1-of that only affects another 1-of, so that's not very good. You also get 1 Chaos Crystal and 1 Unending Fire Crystal. These are both very good ramp. This is another reason why we shouldn't have so many aura. So, now, let's go over what we're taking out, and I'll tell you why. So, first of all, when I say easy upgrades, I mean easy. I'm not going to be adding any rares, no golds, just bronzes and silvers, so these should be stuff that you can get pretty easily from opening up a booster box or opening a few packs. So, here's what we're removing. We're removing all 4 of the Charmants, because as I said, it's really not very good, and it's very highly costed. We're removing all copies of Fire Enchant and Spontaneous Combustion, because, first of all, Fireball is probably better than Spontaneous Combustion, and Fire Enchant relies on beasties and doesn't give that much of a bonus anyway. We're getting rid of 5 of the Flame Aura, because we're removing all of our 5-cost beasties anyway, and we really just don't need that many aura. And then we're getting rid of the Salamander Queen in the Desert, because while Salamander Queen's a good card, it relies on other cards, and Desert's just a 1-of that would only benefit Salamander Queen anyway. So, this gives us about 17 slots to work with, 17 slots exactly, so what would I recommend you add? Here's what. You want to add 1 Bookmark, because you really want to play a set of Bookmarks, it's such a good card. We're going to add 5 Lava Bears. So, how it's been ruled for new players out there is even if you just have like a picture of a volcano, that counts for Volcanic Spurt's 4th wall text. So this is a 1-drop, 5-of, bronze that deals 150 damage and inflicts burn. And while it's very fragile, it can still survive a fireball, still survive a lightning bolt. It's just, it pumps out so much damage. This is really what you want your deck to turn into. You want it to be Giant Salamander, Lava Bear, deal a bunch of damage quickly, control the board, get rid of your opponent's beasties. Another card that's going to be crucial at getting things out quickly and controlling the board is Fire Elemental. We're going to be adding 3 more of those because it's really good at ramp, it can attack quickly, and those burns are devastating against those burns are devastating against forest decks. It can also be pretty good late game by giving you bits of extra damage with its power living flames. Next we're adding 3 fireballs because, as I previously said, it's really great for slowing down your opponent because it can give them burn. It can also take out lots of beasties and artifacts, or even just deal 25 damage to a chunky beastie so you can take it out with one of your other beasties. Next, we're running a full playset of Lightning in a Bottle. This is one crucial card that I think it's terrible that these theme decks didn't come with. This is really great because it just lets one of your beasties get off another attack. You can have your Lava Bear go from dealing 150 a turn to 300 a turn if you use a Lightning in a Bottle. It's so good, you want to be running all 5. Now, let's talk about how you're going to be wanting to play this deck. So, for opening hand, you're looking for 1 or 2 aura, maybe 3. You want some Lava Bears or Giant Salamanders, you probably want a Fire Elemental, you probably want a Lightning in a Bottle. Fireballs or Bookmarks are great. Basically, these 5 and Giant Salamander are your top cards. Having some of your ramp is good. It's not crucial that you have a crystal or an Aurifact, but it's pretty decent. And yeah, that's pretty much how you play that deck. That's what you want for an opening hand. You just play your beasties as fast as possible. First priority is take out your opponent's beasties, and then just start chipping in for damage with your Salamander and your Salamander, and Lava Bear. So one thing really crucial to remember is you don't want to play your Fire Elemental or your Lava Bear when your opponent has a Beastie with good attack on board, because they can just one-shot that. You want to play fairly conservatively, actually, when you're behind on board control. So there's two ways to play. First, it's actually a pivot deck. You start out being very aggressive, go for board control. If that doesn't work out and your opponent takes board control, you need to play conservatively and use cards like Fireball to kind of lower down their threats until you can safely play a Lava Bear or Giant Salamander. That's where Lightning in a Bottle really comes in, because you can play a Lava Bear and then Lightning in a Bottle that same turn to take out one of your opponent's beasties. That's really how you pivot and take back board control. So yeah, that's the breakdown of this deck and the upgrades. I hope this is helpful. I think this actually gets it fairly close to a competitive Flame deck. The only things you'd add would be more gold cards. You'd want a second Unending Fire Crystal. You'd want a Piazza Bird. You might want a Phoenix Rain. Just basic good Flame rares. But I think this deck is actually really good. And thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you found it helpful. Enjoy the release of MetaZoo. Bye!